This is the worst Spider-Man run of all time. There is no way around it. Spider-Man is not heroic. He can't even break out of handcuffs. Spider-Man is written terribly. Man said he loves MJ like a sister. His entire supporting cast is either missing or when they show up, they're written out of character. Flash is bullying Peter like it's the 70s again. The artwork for a large majority of the run is just bad. Flat out bad. No way around it. And there are many, many more issues from there when it comes to this run. But why is this run so maligned? Why is it so poorly received? You can go into your local comic shop and you'll find a stack of Zeb Wells' Amazing Spider-Man books just sitting there. Why? Prior to his tenure on Amazing Spider-Man, Zeb Wells was touted as a top-tier writer at Marvel. His Hellion's X-Men run was revered. But then he writes Amazing Spider-Man and forgets how to write completely. Why is this written so poorly? There's many rumors as to why this run of Spider-Man comics is so bad. Some say the editor Nick Lowe got involved and forced a story he wanted to see. Some say that Wells got a divorce prior to the run and that inspired the awful romance aspect of this book. Others believe there is a mandate by Marvel's higher-ups to keep Peter Parker single and depressed. We truly have no idea why this run is so bad, but it does not matter. It really doesn't matter why this run was produced so poorly. Whether it be Zeb Wells' personal issues, Nick Lowe getting involved too much, or Marvel higher-ups stepping in, truly does not matter who's to blame. What matters is this book sucks. Like, it's available to the public. We all got to read it, and it's horrific. That's what matters. And it sucks way worse than it ever did. In Peter's history, he's had some bad moments. But this run is by far and away the worst Spider-Man run ever. I cannot undersell it. Today in this video, we're going to go over literally every single reasoning as to why this run is so goddamn bad. Yes, me, the fool that I am, Spider Dunk, own this entire run. No one can say I don't have the right to criticize this book because not only have I read this entire thing, and I dreadfully reread it so I could make sure this video was well produced and I knew exactly what I was talking about, but I also paid for this entire run as it was coming out. If I'm spending my money on a product, I'm going to voice my displeasures as much as I please. And man, did I have some displeasures with this run. Let's start with the beginning of the run and go from there. The beginning. Ugh. I hate the beginning. Oh my god. The run starts out as like a what did Peter do story. Everyone is mad at Peter and fed up with him. From Aunt May to Human Torch, Peter did something we as fans don't know about, and it's a big mystery as to what it is. Peter is very preoccupied and isn't connecting with Randy as well. He calls MJ at the end of the issue and she says for him to not call her. The book ends with MJ hugging Paul, her new boyfriend, while also embracing two kids we've never met before. This is terrible! In theory, a what did Peter do storyline is fine and can work if it has payoffs. However, we will get back to that payoff later. That big old if we're talking about, if it has a payoff. What makes this so goddamn terrible for fans to see is the last run literally ended with Peter and MJ together. They're moving in together. It was the dream. We were getting close to what we always wanted. The biggest and most known couple in comic book history was finally getting his wife back and her husband back. They were going to be together again. Then the new run starts and MJ's telling Peter to never talk to her again. What a heartbreaker. Where did we go wrong? We went from almost undoing the literal most hated piece of Spider-Man mythos to keeping the most iconic couple apart and giving MJ a new boyfriend and kids. The book started out saying 6 months later. Where did these presumed toddlers even come from? Was she pregnant for a microsecond? These are the kind of emotions one would feel when reading the first issue. And man, does it feel bad. Being so close to seeing MJ and Peter together just to see them split up and MJ be with someone else with his kids, it leaves readers distraught. This is not what anyone wanted to have, or what we were promised. We thought they'd be together again. They've never been further apart. But if it's a well-written story, it'll explain what Peter did and maybe offer us a cathartic moment further down the line. Make sense of all these things that were just thrown at us, right? But the key word again is if. It's a big if. The story goes on, and we as readers are left feeling more hollow than we did in the first issue. When it's issue 1, we can all collectively hope Spider-Man is in some kind of illusion, maybe by Mysterio, and he'll break out of it. And we'll get the story we thought we were going to receive all along. But you keep reading the run and it just gets worse. Seeing MJ and another man with kids, absolutely brutal. It felt sacrilegious to even be reading issue 1. I'm sorry, my spider goat. I didn't know it would be like this. Then you read issue 2 and Peter talks to Norman Osborn about potentially working for him. Whoa, what? I know Norman doesn't have his sins anymore, but this man is the man who killed your clone brother and your child. This can't be a thing. How can this man kill 2 of Peter Parker's family members, but Peter is okay to work with them gleefully? This just can't be a thing. It can't be. But it is. The issue ends with Spider-Man fighting against Tombstone until Tombstone manages to beat Spider-Man down and knock him unconscious. Tombstone beats Spider-Man in a 1 versus 1, no amplifications or anything. The guy who took down Firelord and Juggernaut is now losing to Tombstone. You can't be serious, you just can't be. This brings me to my biggest gripe of this entire run so far that I'll constantly call back to throughout this entire video. Spider-Man is not allowed to feel like Spider-Man in this comic for some reason. I don't know why. He almost never wins a fight against any of his rogues. And if he does win a fight, he usually needs help from someone who's significantly weaker than he is. It's embarrassing. Why am I reading a book about a superhero who is hardly ever shown off to be super or a hero in this book? It truly makes no sense to me why someone would write Spider-Man to be so weak. And if you think this is bad, just wait, there are so many more glaring and worse examples. This is the first time in the run we see Spider-Man fail to be heroic, and I promise you it is far from the last. The next issue continues to do itself no favors, showing Spider-Man be as weak and pathetic as you've ever seen him. But before we even see Spider-Man weak and feeble, we have to talk about what happens first. The debt collector is back outside Peter Parker's apartment, but Peter isn't there. Who is? Paul is. Paul was walking by, wanted to talk to Peter about some things, but he runs into the debt collector. The debt collector tells Paul Peter's debt is deep, and Paul feels kind of bad for him, so Paul pays for his rent. Now, I think this is supposed to show that Paul is a sympathetic person, and maybe we shouldn't hate him, since, you know, he's kind. However, as a reader, all you take away from this is that Peter can't pay his own debt, so that a man from another different universe who took his girl has to. It makes Peter look like he's not an actual adult. He seems like a child who can't get his life in order, and he needs help from people not even from this universe to help settle his debts. But this issue itself gets much worse from there, people. We see that Peter was captured by Tombstone and chained up underneath a gang hideout. Peter is then beaten into a bloody pulp by Tombstone. Tombstone then orders for his men to kill Spider-Man. Spider-Man then begins to beg for his life to not be killed because he can't break out of handcuffs. Handcuffs! This could be the all-time low for Spider-Man. Man's is about to get one in the fucking dome because he can't break out of handcuffs. Oh my god, this Spider-Man is pathetic. Are you serious? The arc continues in issue 4, and Spider-Man is broken out of his handcuffs by Tombstone's henchman, Kareem. Kareem claims that Tombstone just wanted to scare Spider-Man a little bit. Spider-Man noticed all the men Tombstone had in the gang hideout, and he makes it his goal to thwart them all. Spider-Man clobbers pretty much everyone in the entire house, but it isn't until he bodies the Rose and takes off his mask that he realizes this isn't Tombstone's gang at all. It's just the Rose's gang. Tombstone had set up Spider-Man to defeat the Rose so that he didn't have to get involved. This in itself is an interesting twist, I won't lie. I didn't see it coming when I read it. But it comes at the cost of Spider-Man still not being a hero. He got tricked by a gangster to take out a rival gang in New York City so that the gangster could be the gang lord of New York City. Yeah, Spider-Man finally got to be a badass and take down a whole warehouse full of gangsters, but he did so unknowingly helping Tombstone become even bigger and more powerful. This is the 4th issue of the entire run. Spider-Man is still yet to do anything heroic in here. Nothing. Issue 6 is where we get our next moment. This is a massive milestone issue, and we get to see a lot of Peter's supporting cast for like the first time in the entire run. And I think this is the next major issue I have in the run. Zeb Wells doesn't understand or care to know about Peter's supporting cast. Like, in this issue, Flash Thompson is bullying Peter Parker. This is in the 70s. Unless Zeb Wells gets his Spider information from like the Remy films, Flash grows out of this bullying phase a long time ago and becomes a good guy and one of Peter Parker's best friends. So how come at Peter Parker's birthday party, Flash is roasting and bullying him? Alright then. The story itself is like a whatever story. Spider-Man has to team up with the Sinister Six in order to fight a threat willing to kill them all. That's not the actual eye roll part. I mean, it's a milestone issue and we get to see all these iconic villains plus the living brain. It's honestly neat. A serviceable story, I'm not gonna lie. It's the goddamn ending. Black Cat meets Spider-Man on the roof after the altercation happens and Spider-Man just finished fighting for his life. He's like, Some birthday, I didn't even get to open up a present. Then Black Cat kisses Spider-Man. Whoa! Where on earth did that come from? This is like unprompted and unmotivated. Black Cat and Spider-Man haven't been a thing for years. There's no lead-up or anything. This writing is ass! This brings me to my third reoccurring issue in the run. Black Cat's character is reduced to simply being the other woman in Peter Parker's life again. This is a routine thing in Spider-Man mythos, and it's truly sad that the writers in the Spider Office don't care to give Black Cat her own story. Whenever anyone at Marvel decides to do something with Black Cat, the Spider Office just ignores all the character development they've given her in order to put her back in that same old box as the same other woman temptress she constantly is being put in. The time for Black Cat and Spider-Man was the 70s and the early 80s, people. Once Spider-Man solidified things with MJ and they got married, Black Cat should have been allowed to grow into her own character with her own relationships and adventures. But in the Spider-Man office, no one is allowed to grow. Black Cat's forever getting shafted by poor writing. Nice. The run continues and we are at now issues 7 and 8, which could be some of the worst comics in this entire run. That is definitely saying something. This run is ass. In these issues, we see that Peter is thinking about accepting a job from Norman. Oh, Jesus Christ. At the same time, Vulture was just told by his granddaughter, Tiana, that she knows he's evil, and she can no longer see him as family. Vulture, believing Peter Spider-Man was the reason for this, dons his costume and tracks down Spider-Man. When he finds Spider-Man, he begins to beat the ever-living fuck out of him. Across 2 different issues. He's beating Spider-Man's ass across New York City. Vulture. When has Adrian Toomes ever been shown to be anywhere near this powerful? The worst part about this is Zeb Wells can actually just write a reason into the story as to why he's beating Spider-Man. Maybe he made some device that made Spider-Man's spider sense not work. Maybe he made a device that dampened Spider-Man's powers. Something in canon to make sense of the Vulture overcoming quite literally hundreds of tons of strength. Instead, Vulture's just angry today, so Spider-Man gets beaten from an inch of his life. The fight gets so bad that Peter starts begging Norman Osborn for help. Nah, this is not it. He's begging the man who murdered his daughter for help. This is just sad, man. Chalk it up yet another time Spider-Man can't be shown off as heroic in his own run. Norman would eventually oblige and send Spider-Man a new suit and a freaking glider? It's got like this piss yellow color in it too. Shit sucks. Spider-Man then dispatches of the Vulture with his new suit. He returns to Norman and accepts the job. Recap. Spider-Man got his ass kicked by Vulture because Vulture was a little angry today. Spider-Man has to beg Norman Osborn for help. Spider-Man then accepts a job at Oscorp from Norman. Yeah, this is the worst Spider-Man comic of all time. This run is horrible, and it only gets worse. The next major glaring issue in this run can be found in the very next book. I wish I didn't have to literally talk about each and every book in this run because they're all so bad, but they're all so bad, so I have to bring up each and every book in this run. If there's a point in the run where I can skip a few issues because they're not like dastardly bad, I will. Until then, we are covering everything wrong in this run, which means every single issue. Anyways, issue number 9. Spider-Man and Wolverine crossover. Thwip, snick it, I'm down. The book overall, it's fine. Yeah, it's whatever. Until you get to the ending. The ending is just pitiful. The issue is nearing the end after the gala was attacked. Spider-Man is talking to MJ, and he just asks her to get coffee. That's it. 2 friends getting coffee. MJ fires off on Spidey, and Spider-Man's like, is it because of Paul? You can't get coffee with me because of Paul? Then MJ's like, it's about responsibility. I thought you'd understand. What the actual fuck is this writing? Genuinely trying to figure it out. MJ calling Peter out on responsibility is insane. She knows this man nearly kills himself every goddamn day trying to protect the city because he sees everyone and everything in this city as his responsibility. Having MJ flame our boy like this after we literally almost had them married again, flat out depressing. We all wanted them together so badly. Now they can't even have a conversation as friends because of responsibility. What the fuck does that mean? Lastly, the most egregious part about this is MJ explodes on Peter for nothing at all. He literally asks why they can't talk. Is it Paul? Does she love Paul so much she won't even talk to him? MJ erupts and curses at him and says this isn't about you. Dude asks you to get coffee. What is this garbage writing? I literally cannot. This is straight up awful. But it continues. The very next issue is Judgment Day. And again, it's bad. Peter is being judged by Arishem the Celestial. However, he sees the judge as Gwen Stacy, so you have like Gwen just following him around the entire book. We can't get away from her, huh? She's just following us around. She died over 40 fucking years ago and they're still bringing her up. There is a nice moment of Peter and Miles talking to each other about how much they appreciate each other in here. And then you got Gwen just like standing in the background, standing over Peter's shoulder, just ruining it. At the end of it all, Peter is judged accordingly and he's granted a gift, akin to Amazing Spider-Man 500 when he's given a moment in time with Uncle Ben. Except this time he's given a moment in time with Gwen. Ugh. Can we please stop this? Peter has accepted her death years ago. I do not understand why Gwen is still a prominent role in Amazing Spider-Man comics when, again, she's been dead for 40 plus years. Please stop giving us Gwen Stacy content. I am begging like Peter Parker has a gun to the back of his head and he's in handcuffs. In the next arc, we get 3 issues of Hobgoblin and Antics. More rehashed storylines. Yay! If rehashing old storylines was the worst this run did, I would be way more excited to talk about this, I'm not gonna lie. But sadly, rehashed storylines is far from the worst and most indicting issues in this run. I won't cover the story too much because in these 3 issues, it's like nothing happening really. Nothing offensively bad. However, issue 11 is the explicit issue Peter Parker asks out Black Cat. Ugh. This scene is trash, guys. It's bad enough that Black Cat is being asked out by Peter Parker, who should be with MJ. But Mans can't even talk to her like an adult. Dude is acting like he's a middle schooler talking to his crush. You're a 28-year-old grown man. If you, ask her out and she says no, you just move on. Part of life is rejection. This man is nearly puking on himself because he's so nervous to ask out Black Cat. This is flat out embarrassing. This isn't an adult. How a man who has dated a plethora of supermodels has no idea how to talk to women all of a sudden? No, I don't know. But it's Amazing Spider-Man by Zed Wells, a run filled with random out-of-character moments. It is what it is. The issues continue on and Norman and Peter share up their relationship as well. And the last problem I have with this arc is Spider-Man again needing to be saved. This time, instead of begging Norman Osborn for help though, Norman shows up as the Gold Goblin and saves Peter Parker from being killed by the 2 Hobgoblins. Because Spider-Man can't be shown off doing heroic stuff in his own books. He's gonna need help from his nemesis. That makes sense. Quick aside, I just want to say Gold Goblin mini was actually pretty good. If you're actually looking for something that's good reading that may have spawned out of the Zed Wells run, it's this mini. It's about 4 or 5 issues. It's really, really sad and raw. It's not like sugarcoating anything or making Norman Osborn look like a good guy. It's just traumatic. And you're like, damn, this is what Norman deserves, but this is really sad. I'm not going to lie. Just going to bless y'all with some solid writing before we jump right back into the worst Spider-Man run ever. We've gone through about the first 20% of the entire run. Up to this point, I can't imagine anyone would say this run is great, good, or even solid. I find it just flat out bad at this point. Whether it's the very noticeable lack of Spider-Man supporting cast, how poorly they are written whenever they do show up, or just the fact that Spider-Man himself can't even be shown to be super heroic in his own comic. It's just flat out bad. But there is more to come. We still don't know what Peter did that led to everyone being so mad at him, or how MJ has 2 kids and why she's dating a man from another universe. When the light is shed on this, maybe we'll have a better story, right? One that's more complete, hopefully. Well, we'll get to that, but before we can do that, we have to talk about Dark Web. Yep, that's up next, Dark Web. If you're not aware, Dark Web is the Spider-Man story in which Peter Parker and Jean Grey's respective clones wage war on New York City in order to get their memories back. It's issue 14, beginning Dark Web. Ben Reilly and Janine join up with Madeline Pryor. Ben is given spectral powers and Madeline Pryor is made into Hollow's Eve. She possesses masks that allow her to change into whatever supernatural mask she puts on. Cool. After they join up with Madeline Pryor, Ben Reilly has this awfully goofy dialogue walking down the street when he runs into Peter's debt collector. Ben can't really remember anything and he mishears the debt collector. So he beats him into an inch of his life, kidnaps him, and brings him to Madeline Pryor in limbo. Huh? What the heck happened? Why is Ben flat out evil? Now, what is Marvel doing to him? This brings up the next major issue I have with this run. I can't stand the way Marvel now chooses to write Ben Reilly. They have him as this edgy, evil Spider-Man who is just like a jerk. He makes jokes out of everything in a bad way, not in like a good guy way. They refuse to give us any catharsis for him. Hopefully after the end of Dark Web, he will have his memories back and become a good guy again, right? Hopefully? Maybe? Potentially? I think we all know what's gonna happen. Dark Web continues on and it just buns. The next few issues are filled with contrived nonsense. Like to sell books? Venom is mind-controlled and written as a villain again so he can try to eat Peter Parker's brains. Just like, okay, I guess we're going to revert characters completely back to their day one so we can try and sell books. Thankfully, the Venom team managed to make this work within their storyline, and it's actually pretty well done when you're actually reading the Venom run, but his appearance in Dark Web itself is ass. Then you continue with more mischaracterizations of Ben Reilly nearly killing people, and New York City becoming a part of limbo and overrun with demons, and yeah, that's Dark Web's premise. Dark Web also gives us the demon infused with an enchanted symbiote, and he becomes Wreck-Rap. I like him a lot. I know a lot of people don't. I personally find him endearing, but that's just me. If you don't like him, I get it. You know, he's pretty shallow, much like the rest of this run. He's kind of a microcosm of everything going on here. Anyway, the main events of Dark Web come. Here we are. Madeline Pryor is going to fight Jean Grey for her memories back. But wait, then Jean gives her the memories back. No fight needed. Jean's a world-class psychic. Why do they need to battle it out? She can just duplicate the memories and give it to Madeline. This makes Madeline so happy. So happy that she calls off the invasion and leaves Ben Reilly to rot. Wait, what? Yup, Ben Reilly is left to rot. He can't have his memories back, but Madeline can. Why? Because editors said so. That's why. Ben Reilly goes enraged, just like the rest of us who are reading along with him. And it takes the combined efforts of the X-Men, Spider-Man, Rep-Rap, and I guess these guys to take him down. Once Ben Reilly is taken down, he's imprisoned, and Madeline Pryor opens up an embassy for limbo in New York City. That's Dark Web. Yup, if you're keeping score, Madeline Pryor used Ben and tricked him to get what she wanted. And then when she got what she wanted, she left him on his own to die and take the fall. Ben is then in prison while Madeline Pryor is given an embassy. Last I checked, Ben can't wage war on New York City with demons of limbo because, well, Ben doesn't run limbo, Madeline Pryor does. Why is Madeline Pryor rewarded with an embassy while Ben is sent to prison? Who was writing this stuff? This run sucks. But hey, a break from all the over-the-top world-ending doomsday stuff. A vacation 2-part issue. Why even talk about this? Surely there's nothing like that dastardly in here that would cause Spider-Dunk to need to talk about a vacation issue, right? Like nothing bad could happen in here. Oh my god, he went on a vacation with his lover Black Cat, and then Paul and MJ happened to be at the same vacation spot too. The story itself is harmless nothing burger, but there's a part in this book where Black Cat and Peter are having a heart-to-heart, and Peter says he loved MJ like a sister. What the fuck? Well, that just happened, alright? Where does this run actually even go from there? Oh, it's finally time to learn what Peter did. What happened to MJ in the alternate dimension? The big payoff. Finally, thank God, after 20 freaking issues, it's here. Almost a full calendar year of those books, and we finally got something. Finally the show to tell us what happens. Peter wakes up and he's doing his thing. MJ wakes up and she's doing her thing, but she's like in her spot with Paul and the kids. That's when a demon from another dimension shows up and he's going to attack MJ. She calls Peter and she's like, he's back! And that's when we begin to learn what happened. We flash back to the past. Peter and MJ are attacked by Rabin. Well, really just Peter, but for some reason when Peter is teleported to an alternate universe, MJ, who's blocks away, gets teleported as well. She's nowhere even in the vicinity, but okay. The next issue is issue 22. We see Peter and MJ in the other dimension. We're actually finally here. They are attacked by a giant creature when a shadowy figure saves them. It's freaking Paul. In the alternate dimension, they are constantly followed by Rabin, as Paul is using technology to save Peter. MJ identifies that Rabin is after Peter, and she sends him back to their actual dimension, 616. Issue 23, Spider-Man is home and he's racing around. He runs home, finds Norman in his house, and he explodes on him to the point where he's even scaring Aunt May. Peter, looking around for help, he races to the Fantastic Four and tries to ask Reed Richards for help, but the Thing and Johnny question if this is even the real Spider-Man. Spider-Man's in such a hurry, he's just like, I ain't dealing with this right now, I'm dipping out of here, and he runs into Captain America. Captain America's like, I think we need to have a little conversation about all this stuff going on, and Spider-Man shoves him, punches him, and then goes to find Norman Osborn to ask him for help. Okay? Going back to Norman Osborn for help, even though at this point they're not actually friends yet. Just because Norman doesn't have sins doesn't mean these guys are buddy-buddy, but okay. Next issue, Norman creates a device that can teleport Peter back to where he was, but he needs to steal from the Fantastic Four to complete it. After he nearly gets incinerated by the Human Torch, he gets to Norman with the device, they hook it up, and he's teleported back to MJ. MJ's actually about to die. Peter Parker shows up at the perfect time and a big fight happens. Rabin is actually slain in the ensuing battle by Paul. Peter then sees the kids and MJ is like, they are my family, and Peter's just puzzled, much like we are. Anyways, we are at issue 25 and the arc continues and we begin to learn more about what happened when MJ was alone in the dimension as well. The issue is drawn by Carr Andrews. I'm sorry I'm not the greatest with name pronunciation, but I just want to say, Man's cooks. Anytime he's on the sticks, his artwork is phenomenal. I love the way he draws MJ. Whether it's being Spider-Man Reign or in Amazing Spider-Man, I just love his MJ. It's a shame he drew this issue. It so heavily features Paul. But whatever. I still love good art. I'm happy to see it wherever I can. All right, so we're in the alternate dimension. Peter's gone. He's back in 616. It's just MJ and Paul. While MJ is like in this other dimension, she's waiting for Peter to come back and get her, and she's saying things that would make you think she would never give up on Peter. But she eventually does. Time works differently here. On Earth, what may be just a minute could have been hours in this dimension. MJ gets with Paul, and then the two of them find these abandoned children and they take them in. All four of them are always on the run from Rabin. Right before he gets them, that's when actually Peter shows up and saves the day, and that's when we see this face, this iconic face. So everything is out in the open now, right? Everything's on the table. We know what happened in the other dimension. We know what happened to Peter Parker back on Earth. Everything has been revealed. And what does this tell us? That there was no freaking payoff at all. I want my freaking money back. Are you serious? What is this? So when MJ was telling Peter to never call her again in the beginning of the run, it was because Peter fought tirelessly to get her back? When MJ is so mad at Peter at the gala when he asked to get coffee with her, it's just because she's really mad about nothing? I mean, the Fantastic Four and Captain America maybe have a right to be a little bit annoyed, but a simple explanation should suffice. I mean, they're all in the superhero business, right? They get it. He didn't kill anyone. He stole some technology, shoved Captain America, and punched him one time. That's the whole big thing Peter did? Punch Captain America? They had like a whole civil war that wasn't even this big of a deal. And the kids actually aren't even MJ's. Like, in the very beginning of the run, we're led to believe that the daughter looks exactly like her. Maybe this is just the artist's issue for drawing women the exact same way. But MJ and this person who's presumed to be her daughter, but is actually her adopted daughter, look identical. Okay? But the big reveal is that they're just random ass bastard children they found in the other world. Okay. Remember that big if I was telling you guys about when I said if this story is written well, it would actually could be potentially good, a Peter what did he do story? That didn't come into fruition, did it, huh? Nope. Nah, fam, this shit is ass. I can't believe that all the mystery stuff amounted to Peter fought tirelessly to save MJ. I can't, like, that's the whole mystery. I could have told you he was going to do that. That's my boy. That's my dog. That's the dog in him. This brings me to my next major issue with the run. It's how it actually writes MJ, and honestly, it's how it treats women as a whole. MJ is completely out of character for like 99.9% of this run. We've seen her in other universes or in 616 willing to wait forever for Peter Parker. She believes in him, and he believes in her. This whole she gave up on him for this dork is just ludicrously out of character. Then you find out she's livid with him for what he did, and what he did was really nothing at all. It's like, why do the writers and editorial staff hate MJ so much? What are we reading here? And like, there's no other way around it, because we know throughout the last 50 years MJ's actually existed in these comic books. She's not actually this type of character. It's just this last 2 to 3 years she's been written like this. What's going on here? Why do they not like her so much? Are they that obsessed with Gwen Stacy? I can't actually fathom somebody would be obsessed with a character that actually has no character behind her. She's just a plot device, whereas MJ actually is a character. It leads me to believe that the people at the Spider-Man office are afraid of women who actually are women and have strong characters. That's what this run leads you to believe, but I'll continue, because the next issue just adds more evidence to what I'm saying. The next issue really caps off the entirety of the arc. It's a dud stinker arc like the rest of the issues. Kamala Khan is forced into like the intro of the arc. It's like a flashback showing her apply at Oscorp. Then she's just conveniently there for the final battle against Rabin. Alright, buddy. Rabin, now on Earth 616, uses his powers and removes his constructs from reality. Basically, he makes the kids disappear. They were actually never real. They likely served as homing beacons for Rabin so he can constantly find MJ and Paul wherever they went. Before I continue talking about this, I have to bring up the fact that I've never seen the Spider-Man fandom / community so united on one thing. When these kids disappeared, the fans cheered in unison, roared in excitement. The kids were killed off and the entire fandom was ecstatic. This is how you know this run is terrible. We're cheering for the death of literal random rat-ass bastard kids. Look what you've done to me, Amazing Spider-Man. What have you done? Anyways, back to the story. Rabin is here to complete the prophecy and kill MJ? Wait, what? I thought he was supposed to kill Peter. That was like the whole thing. He goes to the other universe. He comes to 616 early in the run in the prequel, that we saw in the flashback, and he's attacking Peter. He teleports Peter over. He says he needs the sun blood. Why is he going after MJ now? This doesn't make any sense. Okay, then. Rabin then goes on to call MJ the Scarlet Woman as he goes to kill her. Interesting. If you don't know, this is like interesting way of calling a woman a prostitute or a whore. Now, why would Rabin call MJ this? He doesn't even know her. He's been chasing her, sure, but he knows zero actual things about her, right? She actually doesn't even exist in his universe, so how would he know anything about her? If anything, it feels kind of like this is just the writer's feelings on the characters and how they think MJ is. But whatever, I'll move on. I'll ignore that. In order to stop the prophecy of Rabin killing MJ that was just made up on the spot, contrived, Kamala Khan uses her powers to shapeshift and look like MJ. Rabin kills her, and instead, Rabin kills Kamala instead, which effectively kills Rabin because he killed the wrong person. I guess that's what happens if you don't fulfill the prophecy correctly. I don't know. They don't actually explain any of this. He's just dead now. That's the big whodunit story, though. Peter fought tirelessly to save MJ. MJ uncharacteristically gives up on Peter and continues to stay with Paul now that she's back in 616. And Kamala Khan, who was shoved into this run for no reason and for maybe 10 panels at most, has just been assassinated. Wow. This run has just been stellar. Just utterly phenomenal, guys. The blatant misogyny here, love it, guys. It's just so good. I love calling MJ a whore and then killing a popular female superhero who's not even supposed to be in this book just for shock value. Great work, team. Let's clap it up. If you can't tell, this is obvious sarcasm. This run sucks. It's so garbage. Gosh, this book is awful. We're not even halfway done yet? You gotta be kidding me. You gotta be joking. God damn it. Fuck! The next arc is way less offensive and doesn't spit in your face as hard as the last one, at least. Issues 27 and 30 are kind of a nothing burger. Spider-Man and Black Cat are together for a bit. Ugh. Goblin Queen, who was killed in Gold Goblin, is apparently alive again. Alright, I guess. Cool. Doc Ock fights Spider-Man and Gold Goblin. Doc Ock injects Norman with Goblin Serum, but it doesn't do anything to him because Norman doesn't have his sins. That doesn't really make any sense. Spider-Man shows up with Doc Ock's arms working for him, and they fight Doc Ock. Spider-Man is actually about to lose yet again. Anyone surprised? Wow, shocker. Oh, who's gonna come and rescue Spider-Man again? Oh, it's Norman Osborn again. Is anyone shocked by this? This is now the third and or fourth time, depending upon how you look at it, that Norman Osborn has saved Peter Parker's life in this run alone. Just gross. Doc Ock escapes, and yeah, that's kind of the end of this arc. Nothing too egregiously bad. Next issue is Randy's wedding. But before we get to Randy's wedding, we have to talk about the little couple no longer being a couple. Wait, who broke up, Paul and MJ? No, they didn't. Come on, editorial will never give us something we want. Spider-Man and Black Cat broke up. I mean, I wasn't the biggest fan of it, but like, why'd they break up? I mean, I'm not a hater of Black Cat. I'm a big fan of her character. I just wish she got her own stuff. But why'd they break up again? Oh, because Black Cat thought their relationship was too healthy. Okay. I'm not even going to touch on that anymore. I'm just going to continue with the rest of this issue and moving on because I think everybody knows who heard that. It's just like, this is utterly stupid. Anyways, it's Randy's wedding, but it actually gets freaking attacked. It's nuts. Madam Mask is actually blown up in a car explosion. Tombstone is shot by bullets that can pierce his bulletproof skin. Randy doesn't end up getting married. It's sad, but hey, Janice is kind of a supervillain. Probably best for you and your family, dog. Just gonna be real with you. Oh, and at the end of the issue, Peter reveals his identity to Kamala Khan because she's a resurrected X-Men member. But before doing so, he says, I usually save this for the terminally ill children. What the fuck? This is just so mean-spirited. It's not even funny. It's not lighthearted. This is just dark, dude. This is way out of character for Peter. I personally don't even think this is cool or anything. I don't know who wrote this. I think anybody who hears this is like, this is just mean. Like, why are we writing Spider-Man to be mean? I don't know. It's not for me, and I don't think anybody who likes Spider-Man would think this is for them either. The story continues, and we have another major plot point happen, though. It's the next issue. Goblin Queen and Kraven are teaming up to give Norman Osborn his sins back. But before we get into that, we do have to talk about everything that happens that's wrong in this run, right? I said we're going to talk about all of it, so we're going to talk about all of it. Earlier in this exact issue, for some reason, Peter starts talking to Norman and says that he remembers the Norman that was nice to him when he was younger, and this is the Norman he's becoming. It's like, dude, that never actually was a thing. You realize that, right? At no point in Spider-Man comics did Peter Parker meet a nice, benevolent Norman Osborn. No. This guy has always been a bad guy, always been an evil dude, not been nice. So where is this notion coming from here? I'm a little confused. I think it comes from the fact that the writers probably don't actually know this, and they just got a lot of their information from the movies, which is very frustrating, I will say. But at the end of the day, we can't actually know for sure. We just know that this is in the book, even though it has no actual reason to be here. Like, there's nothing in the actual canon that would make this so. Anyways, let's continue with how bad this gets. But Peter Parker and all of his nobility jump in between the Spear and Norman. This then infuses Spider-Man with the Goblin sins, making him the Spider-Man who laughs. Dun dun dun! Next issue is probably by far the best drawn issue in the entire run. It's by Patrick Gleason, and he went crazy in issue 33. Put my man on the sticks as much as possible, please. I'm begging you. Spider-Man has the Goblin sins, and he's going after Kraven. He wants his run back for Kraven's last hunt. He beats him down, takes him to the sewers where he lets a group of vermin rat people beat his ass. Then he goes in, drags Kraven out of the sewers, buries him alive, puts him in a casket, and before closing the casket, tosses a gun down to him and says, "Here, skip to the end if you'd like." Damn. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, that was kind of raw. Kind of raw. I liked it. What's next issue? Peter's going to kill Paul? Okay, I'm torn. I don't want my goat to be a killer, but I need this man Paul unalived like yesterday. Issue 34, Spider-Man's on Demon Time. Starts off unplugging Tombstone's life support. Beats the brakes off of Norman, and he's like, "Did you have any mercy for Gwen, dog?" As he continues to beat the brakes off of Norman, and he tells Norman that he wants to take Paul to the top of the bridge and throw him off of it like he did Gwen. The book ends with Norman digging out Kraven to help, Norman revert his sins, while Goblin Queen confronts Spider-Man saying these are not his sins to hold. Issue 35 is here. It's the climax of the Goblin nuts, spiders, whatever. And we got the cringiest dialogue we've seen so far in the entire run. It's Peter talking to MJ, and it's just utterly brutal. Yeah, this is how I picture it sounding. "He gave it to you, that weasel who took you from me? Then it was you, my jackpot. You betrayed me. Didn't you think you would pay?" Why does he sound like that? Like, what is he talking like this for? Why is he like an incel? Anyway, moving on. Goblin Queen starts fighting Peter. MJ starts fighting Goblin Queen. And with the distraction going on, Peter guns it for Paul, threatening to throw him off of this high building. But Kraven interrupts. Peter drops Paul, but he's saved by MJ. And then Peter and Kraven battle it out until Norman stabs Peter with a spear, retracting the sins. Peter and MJ have a sweet moment, and it's like the best drawn panel on the entire run. And then that's the Goblin Peter Parker, the spider who laughs, the spider who gobbles nuts. The arc itself is at least new, but man, it does no favors in itself, showing Peter not be a hero and needing to be saved by others yet again. We're going to add Norman Osborn and Kraven into the mix in terms of people who are going to save Peter Parker. That's a little insane, no? Only villains are saving him and he can't save anybody? I don't like it. The next arc is the total nothing burger. A demon named the Repossessor is going around to get the remaining demons back to Limbo. He then finds Spider-Man and he knows who he is. It's revealed that this is the debt collector from earlier in the run. Spider-Man and Wreck-Rap team up and they beat him. They actually send this man into a wormhole dimension. He's never going to come back because he eats himself, and his self is a new dimension. But you also have to look at it like this. This guy was actually not a bad guy, right? He's a regular dude. He's doing his job. He's a debt collector. He got his ass beat by Ben Reilly for no actual reason at all, and then he was dragged to Limbo, turned into the Repossessor, and now he was just killed by Spider-Man. And I'm not saying Spider-Man shouldn't have done this. This guy was clearly trying to attack Spider-Man. But this is probably the most heroic Spider-Man's been shown, and he's doing this to somebody who is pretty innocent, honestly. He did not ask for any of this stuff to happen to him. Ben Reilly just made it happen. So thanks, Ben Reilly. This is in a long web, when you loop it back around, is another character assassination of Ben Reilly. The next arc is Gang War. This arc itself is actually, again, a nothing burger as a whole. It's crazy. Now, if you've heard about Gang War from word of mouth, people told you it sucked, and it really did suck, but it's also just nothing happening. All these dope street-level heroes together, working together, and it's not like anything actually sticks after the story ends. For example, the first thing I'll talk about is how Madame Mask kills Hammerhead, right? Beats him down using this adamantium thing so she can pierce the adamantium in his skull. But then you read Spectacular Spider-Man issue 3, still set in 616, and Hammerhead still lied. Okay, so I guess this didn't happen. Issue 41, Peter, She-Hulk, and Tombstone are fighting Kingpin, Typhoid Mary, and their goons. Spider-Man is actually losing to the random no-name fodder characters, so yet again, chalked it up to Spider-Man not being heroic. But the whole issue, the reason they're fighting is because they believe that Janice is going to be killed by Kingpin. They think Kingpin ordered a hit on her. Instead, we find out in the next issue, though, that it was just a ploy the whole time. None of this was actually even real, and that they were just trying to let off some steam. That's the whole thing that was going on. Kingpin and Typhoid Mary were fighting so they can let off some steam. So those two issues were literally for nothing. Again, nothing happens in this arc. Remember how earlier in this run I told you that Spider-Man takes down the Rose's men for Tombstone, and he's like, oh my god, I just won Tombstone's gang war for him. Then for some reason we have another massive gang war with more parties involved that are just come from nowhere, I guess, but that doesn't matter. Because it still ends with Tombstone as the gang lord of New York. Literally nothing has changed. I don't understand what the point of this arc even was if everything was just going to be the same as it happens and after it ends. If Miles Morales' Spider-Man didn't actually cook with this event, I'm telling you all got to read it. The artwork is peak. I would say that this entire thing was a giant failure. Amazing Spider-Man Gang War is most certainly a giant failure with terrible artwork. Honestly, like you look at Miles Morales' Spider-Man artwork and you're like, wow, this looks beautiful. It's fast-paced action. Then you look at, Amazing Spider-Man, you look at Miles Morales in this and you're like, why does his sword look like a freaking knife? Why is he drawn like a block? What's going on here? Then you have the rest of the issues, right? Gang War's over. You have issues 46 through 50 before we get to our next big thing, which is in issue 50. Now, throughout 46 through 50, so 46, 47, 48, and 49, it's really like whatever. Nothing too dastardly bad is happening. I mean, Spider-Man has to fight Chasm again, who's trying to get his memories back, which apparently is going to be the new norm for this character. We got to deal with that. And then Spider-Man teams up with Jackpot, MJ's superhero code name, where she can magically pull out random numbers that'll give her random superpower. And if she gets 3 skulls, we don't even know what she happens. She'll probably just die. And that's kind of all that happens in this run. Oh, and Peter starts dating a girl named Shay. All of this stuff is ass, don't get me wrong, but it just doesn't feel like I need to talk about it any more than I have to. We already know MJ and Peter aren't together and we hate it. And we already know that Ben Reilly's being written like a bad guy for no reason and we hate it. So we're just going to move to issue 50 where it's actually like a pretty big deal of badness. It's finally a confrontation between Norman Osborn and Peter. Oh, you thought Norman's sins were gone? Apparently when the sins went back into the spear, Norman received them somehow. Alright then, that makes 0 sense. Anyways, Spider-Man and Green Goblin are fighting. That's when the Goblin releases a gas that would neutralize Spider-Man's powers, and Goblin starts going in on Spider-Man, beating him down. That's when Spider-Man brings up his lab, and he's like, no, did he tell you about my lab? And Goblin's like, oh, you managed to keep something from me? You have a secret in your lab? I will take you there and break your spirit there. So Goblin takes Spider-Man to his lab, but this was Spider-Man's plan all along. The genius wanted him to be taken to the lab. Now on a bit more equal ground, Spider-Man starts bodying the Goblin, and it's pretty dope. He even talks about how he only took the job so he can keep tabs on Norman, and he never trusted Norman from the beginning. You're like, whoa, no way Spider-Man is actually going to be a hero right here. Is this writing kind of fire? And then Goblin dupes Spider-Man and transfers his sins back into him. Jesus Christ. Issue 51, Spider-Goblin is back. The spider who laughs is back. The spider who gobbles nuts is back. Didn't we just get this arc? Like, literally less than a year ago? I get we're rehashing stories from like decades ago, but now we're rehashing stories from like weeks ago? Jeez, y'all must be creatively bankrupt or something because this makes no sense for us to rehash the story again. It's like not even 12 issues earlier, maybe at most. Spider-Man with Norman's sins takes on the Sinister Six and he begins to throttle each and every one of them. I guess when Spider-Man has Norman in his guts, he's strong enough to fight the entire Sinister Six. But if he doesn't have Norman deep down inside of him, he loses 1v1s to freaking Vulture now. This book is so inconsistent with how strong it shows Spider-Man, it's not even funny. Spider-Man bobs every single member of the Sinister Six, then Ben Reilly shows up. And we got the brother fight in issue 52, or the clone brother fight in issue 52. Peter and Ben Reilly are duking it out in this issue, but Goblin Peter with no morals is willing to kill, and he's beating the brakes off of Ben. That's when Ben releases Spectral Goo, and it cleanses Peter's mind of the sins temporarily. And I know what you're thinking. What the actual fuck is Spectral Goo? I have no idea. I've never seen it brought up once in Marvel's history before this. I truly don't know what it is, how Ben got it, or where it came from. But hey, Peter is cured now in a contrived fashion. Yay! Spider-Man goes to get the Winker device and he goes to hunt down Goblin. After some fighting between Miss Marvel and Wreck-Rap versus Green Goblin, we have reached the conclusion of the arc. Peter versus Norman in issue 54. They are barricaded in a room, just the two of them, and the spear with Norman's sins. We get some really goofy back and forth shenanigans, like with the sins being absorbed by Peter and the sins going back into Norman Osborn, and then back into Peter, back into Norman, back into Peter, back into Norman, back into Peter, back into Norman, until it finally goes into Peter, so that Peter, Spider-Man can fight them himself. Spider-Man uses all of his willpower and he shatters the Goblin's sins. Yeah, Goblin's sins are gone and Peter is hopeful that Norman can come back to being a good guy in the future. But like, this doesn't feel good. Shouldn't it feel good? It should feel good, right? But it's just so forced. You know? Like, why was Peter so weak before and now he's so goddamn strong? How come Spectral Goo cleanses Goblin sins? Where did the Spectral Goo even come from? How does Ben Reilly have that? Why were the Goblin sins just jumping back and forth? If willpower is all it takes to beat the Goblin sins, in theory, if Peter were to ever fight Norman Osborn's Green Goblin again, couldn't he just do the exact same thing and shatter the Goblin sins with his own willpower? He's shown he can do it, no? Does this mean that Norman Osborn isn't actually a bad guy and it was just his sins all along? All of this stuff is just so contrived. There's either no answer for them or it's just an absurd notion. We all know Norman Osborn is a horrible, deplorable person. So why on earth are we acting like 60 years after his inception, like he's not a bad guy, and the whole time it was just Sins doing it and he wasn't actually evil? Also, the storytelling in this isn't consistent at all. It just does random ass pulls to make it flow. At least the Goblin arc is finally over, and I hope we never have to see Goblin Spider-Man, the Goblin who laughs, Spider who laughs, Goblin these nuts again. How long until y'all think Norman Osborn is back, though? Because these guys are so creatively bankrupt, you know they're going to try and pull from Spider-Man's biggest nemesis. I mean, I'm just wondering, right? You think it's 3 years? If it's an over-under, I'm taking under. These guys are so bankrupt, you'll see Norman Osborn evil again, retcon, Green Goblin by the end of next year. I'm calling it right now. It's inevitable to these guys. Green Goblin is inevitable to the Spider Office. This story is winding down, and we have issues 55 through 60 left. 55 is its own issue. The rest make up the final arc with Tombstone. Issue 55 is Peter on a date, so it can't be that bad, right? I mean, like, it's just a date issue. It's kind of probably going to be like, I don't know, maybe like a vacation issue where like nothing harmful can actually happen, right? Nothing that would cause Spider-Dunk to talk about how bad this was in his video where he talks about how bad this entire run was, right? Nope, it's bad. This is quite literally the quintessential reasoning I have to show you that Zeb Wells does not understand Spider-Man. At all. He has a fundamental misunderstanding and misread of this character. Mid-date, Spider-Man notices Screwball and Reiner are out committing crimes. But Peter knows if he leaves his date again, it'll never work out with Shay. It's cooked. He's left too many dates at this point. He hasn't proven he can be reliable. So Peter, like any superhero would, gets up to apprehend the criminals. Okay, I like this. That's my Spider-Man, you know? Yeah, he's on a date, and dates are awesome. I like going on dates too, but saving the city is what it's all about. It's what you have the powers for. It's what the responsibility is all about, people. It's what why is he walking out there in civilian clothes? Where's his superhero costume? Peter Parker goes out there not to apprehend the criminals, but to convince them he's on a date that matters a lot to him, and he's wondering if they can resume crime a different night. Not those exact words, but yep, that's pretty much what Peter is saying. He's on a date that means a lot to him, and he can't do this right now. They listen and just go like, I don't know, fuck off, honestly. I have no idea, but that's neither here nor there. At the end of it all, Spider-Man selfishly chose to stay on a date instead of making sure criminals were apprehended and no one got hurt. That is Spider-Man's whole thing after all, right? Ensuring the safety of innocents? Uncle Ben died because Peter Parker was idle and watched a criminal go by. This in turn ended up with the death of his uncle, led to Spider-Man feeling responsible for the safety of literally every single human being in all of New York City. Unless he's on a date. If Spider-Man's on a date, God forbid, he can't possibly help out. I mean, I guess if he's on a date, he can help out because he leaves MJ and he's left Gwen and he's left all of his other previous partners. But if he's on a date with his new girlfriend, Shay, that we've only known for 4 issues, he just can't possibly leave, you know? That would just be too dastardly. This is not my Spider-Man. It is very apparent to any Spider-Man fan, any reader of Spider-Man at this point that Zeb Wells has a fundamental misunderstanding of Spider-Man. Whether you're looking at the Green Goblin factor, where he's trying to say that Green Goblin was a good guy to begin with and the Sins were the problem, or you're actually just going to look at Spider-Man and realize he doesn't understand this character either. Like, at all. Sorry. Alright, well, we're at the final arc, issues 53 to 60. We've been through the ringer, people. We've seen Ben Reilly get his character assassinated. We saw MJ get her character assassinated. We saw Black Cat get her character assassinated. We saw Kamala Khan literally get assassinated. And this entire time, 60 issues worth of Spider-Man comics, we've seen, yep, our main boy, Amazing Spider-Man Peter Parker, get his character assassinated. It has just been a tough run up to this point. But surely these last issues can't make things any worse. Surely. Issue 56 also 950 in terms of legacy numbering. A massive legacy issue. Spider-Man convinces Janice to take the stand against her father and put him away for good. Prior to the hearing, however, Tombstone wants to have a conversation with Peter Parker. He swings by in his limo while Peter and Randy are on the streets and he's like, yo, get in the car. Peter gives the phone to Randy and he's like, yo, call my friend for me and let him know my whereabouts. Peter gets in the car and that's when Tombstone's like, all right, buddy, I gotta kill you. Nothing personal, I'm just trying to lure out Spider-Man. So then Peter has to fight for his life without making it obvious that he's Spider-Man. After a good bit, Peter's about to die, but finally, She-Hulk and Luke Cage arrive and they stop the car, they break up the fight, and Tombstone is arrested for attempted murder. But this issue being a legacy issue has extra stories, people. In it, one of which has Peter third-wheeling MJ and Paul for some chicken korma. What? This guy's getting cucked for chicken? Moving on. Anyways, this story isn't actually about Spider-Man. It's about Paul. Yep, that's right. Issue 950 milestone is dedicated to Paul. Wild. We get to see Paul's life back at home on his home planet, and it turns out that Paul Isn't even sympathetic character. Dude is a CEO of a company, I already don't like him, and he's using his father's insanity/genius in order to generate better profit. I really don't like him. His father's clearly not well, but instead of getting him help or removing him from the project, he makes someone else his father's explicit manager. His dad would go on to kill this man in order to start his path into becoming Rabin. The story then shows Paul visiting this man on 616, the world he's currently staying in, as Paul tries to offer this man anything he can due to feeling so bad for what happened to the alternate reality version of himself. Here's the kicker for it all, too. Here's the kicker. This is the best part. The name of this story, all focused around Paul, who just literally abused his father and used him to force him to get extra profits and make his company even better. Yeah, the name of that story, it's called Responsibilities. Can't make this shit up, I swear. What an actual fucking joke. Paul uses his sick dad to generate profits, who then in turn kills a man. And the writers are trying to show it off as if Paul's the good guy here? Give me a fucking break, man. Next issue, 57. Tombstone gets out of jail on bail. Whoa. Tombstone gets out of jail on bail? The mayor of New York City would have caught this man in the act of attempted murder, but he's out on bail? That would never happen. I mean, I know this is a comic book story, but come on, people. This is just insanity. Tombstone wants to kill Janice so she can't testify against him, so they set up this caravan to get her out of the city in order, to keep her safe. But it's faked the whole time. Tombstone's daughter, Janice, stays at home, and Tombstone actually monitored the whole situation. She's all alone, and he goes in to kill her. But why? I'm just trying to figure this out. I don't get why he's even attempting to kill his own daughter. We just saw this man treat this legal system like it was a swimming pool. He just swam right out of jail like it was nothing, bro. Are we serious right now? Can we talk about this for 1 second? The mayor of New York City testified that Tombstone was attempting murder on Peter Parker, and he got out on bail. Why would it matter what this random daughter says? Why would it matter what his daughter says about him? I really don't understand. What could she possibly know that an elected official saw with his own eyes and testified in court? Do for the situation. What can Janice's testimony do that Luke Cage's couldn't? I don't know. But Tombstone's gonna try and kill his daughter. Luckily, Spider-Man shows up to save the day. The next 2 issues is just like this big battle running through the city. Just picture some cartoon music going on as Janice is running from Tombstone, and Tombstone is chasing her, and Spider-Man is chasing him. They're all going after it. Like that whole goofiness, bro. We get to the peakness of it. Spider-Man saves Janice. Janice escapes. It's Tombstone versus Spider-Man, and Spider-Man's honestly beating him up. He's doing pretty good. But then Tombstone's about to get run over by a train, so Spider-Man naturally jumps in and saves him, right? Kind of crazy. In doing so, he's a little injured and hurt, and Tombstone gets up. He's about to beat Spider-Man down, about to break him apart. And then Spider-Man's like, I didn't just do this to save her. You were gonna kill your daughter. And then he passes out unconscious. This leaves Tombstone thinking damn, maybe Spider-Man actually did this for me as well. He wasn't actually just trying to be the good guy. He was actually trying to be the good guy for everyone, not just for Janice. Tombstone then succumbs to his injuries, and they both pass out right there, and that's the end of issue 59. The artwork throughout the last 2 issues is abysmal. It's brutal to look at. Gosh, it is so hard to look at, man. And a lot of the artwork for the majority of this run has been bad. We're going to be honest, and I've said this earlier, but I'm going to reiterate, it's been bad. But you can get away with a lot of it when there's dialogue going on, there's other stuff happening, there's story moments, thematic themes being played out. It feels nice, it feels good when there's other stuff involved. Issues 58 and 59 are just one big fight scene. And yeah, a lot of this run is horrific, let's be real with ourselves, regardless if it's a fight scene, artwork, or anything. But if they had Patrick Gleason on this fight scene would have been amazing. It would have been stupendous. And yeah, it would have been awful because there's no reason for Tombstone to even attack Janice because we know he treats the legal system like a swimming pool. He's just going to get out of it. But at least we would have seen some gorgeous art for a phenomenal fight. Instead, we just got some mediocre art, if anything, just straight up bad art for just whatever fight. It just looked gross. And it's just not good. And I feel really weird flaming Romita Jr. because he's a phenomenal artist. We've seen some really great work from him in the past. But this really is not where he shined. This run of Spider-Man wasn't it. In large part, the artwork for this book is just bad. But we move on to the very last issue and final issue of Zeb Wells' Spider-Man. Issue 60, people. This has a multitude of stories. So let's just talk about it. It's the last thing. Let's do this. Tombstone gets out of jail because he paid off the judge. Is anyone surprised? Please tell me if you're surprised. You're lying. Do we understand why I was so confused why he felt the need to kill his daughter? I don't get it. Anyways, he did tell Peter to thank Spider-Man, which I thought was kind of kind. I'm not going to lie. We see that Paul and MJ are in fact staying together as Peter goes on a double date with Paul and MJ, and he brings Shay as well. Nice. Okay. Rec Rap is staying apparently. I don't really have any qualms with this. Y'all know me. I like the guy, but if you don't like him, I can understand you being mad. And lastly, Zeb Wells had to take one last stab at Ben Reilly before he left. Ben goes on to tell Peter that he wants his own life. He wants his own thing. He doesn't really care about the memories. He just wants to do his own thing. Peter's like, okay, bet. And Ben's like, okay, bet. Then you turn the page and Ben's like, I lied. I must get my memories. Peter has my life. He stole it from me. What was even the point for this first page? Peter already thinks that you're like this. Peter already thinks you're some psycho insane dude who's trying to steal all of his memories for yourself. So, like, why do you feel the need to tell him you're not trying to do that just to continue to try and do that and say you lied? Because that almost seems like he feels remorseful and bad about it, you know? Like, I don't get it. It's even worse when, like, the issue before it had Peter on that double date I was telling you about. The very last scan had a character that kind of resembles Chasm standing outside the window. And you're like, wow, are they going to continue with Chasm being bad? And then you flip the page, it's like, yep. Like, shouldn't you have saved this reveal? Have him tell Peter maybe, and then later on show that he was lying? Wouldn't that make more sense for like some more drama? You didn't build up the drama at all. It was the next page. Like, that's the whole run in a microcosm. Nothing makes sense. This just make no sense. Peter did something horrendous. No one can forgive him. In actuality, Peter just worked his ass off to save people. It doesn't make sense. MJ hates Peter because he worked his ass off to save people. It doesn't make sense. Black Cat has to be reverted back into being Spider-Man's other side woman until they just say she's over him. It doesn't make sense. There's a man from an alternate universe who calls the death of an entire Earth that he's living in 616 and dating MJ. It does not make any sense. Ben Reilly isn't given his memories from any world-class psychics. Norman Osborn's sins make him the Green Goblin. This entire run makes jack diddly squat of sense, guys. It's ridiculous. It's offensively bad. As a longtime Spider-Man fan, I couldn't believe what I was reading. By the end of it, how many times did Peter even get to be a hero? How many times was Norman Osborn shown to be more of a hero than Peter was? This is the Amazing Spider-Man, not the Amazing Green Goblin, and we really even get to see Spider-Man be Spider-Man. I can't believe after 2.5 years, we really got to just slop and slop only. If I had to say if I even liked any of these issues, I'd say there's 2 issues out of freaking 60 that I thought were all right. I would say issue 33, which we talked about in this exact video. I thought it was drawn beautifully, and I like Spider-Man getting his lick back for like Kraven's Last Hunt. I thought it was pretty raw. I ain't gonna lie to you. Then there's issue 49, and that's the Blood Hunt tie-in. It's just fun. There's nothing offensive about it. It's fun. I liked it. The fact of the matter is, this run has 2 all-right issues at best out of 60, dude. That's like at most an 8% grade on a test. What are we doing here? What even is the point of this run? We started out with Peter, not with MJ. We end the run, and Peter is not with MJ. We start the run, and MJ is with Paul. We end the run, and MJ's still with Paul. Norman didn't have his sins to start the run. He still doesn't have his sins to end the run. Ben Reilly started out as evil. Ben Reilly's going to continue to be evil. Heck, Tombstone was the overarching bad guy, and he just walks away scot-free after everything to continue being a bad guy. Literally nothing in the entire run happened. Just pieces being moved around and then put back in a box. The whole thing is such a nothing burger besides the fact that it's trying to offend us as fans. Lastly, and maybe the worst of what it all comes down to, in my opinion, what is even this run about? What is the message of it? What is the meaning here? What are we supposed to take away from this run? Aside from all the narrative issues, plot hole issues, and consistency issues, what am I supposed to learn from this story? When you read Kraven's Last Hunt, you take away that love can conquer all. You're truly never alone if you have your loved ones. In Child Within, you learn to never give up on your friends, no matter how lost they may seem to be. Maximum Carnage tells us that sometimes good must work with bad to triumph over true evil. These are themes and stories that are exemplified throughout each of these stories. So I ask again, what is the theme of this story? Work your hardest to save those who love you and then they'll hate you? The road to hell is paved with good intentions? Is that what I'm supposed to learn from reading Amazing Spider-Man? Maybe I'm supposed to learn that sometimes you can't actually stop evil. Evil is just the force of society. No matter what efforts you present, it'll always just be there. Tombstone just never gonna get caught. He can't actually be stopped, I guess. Is that what I'm supposed to get from reading this run? Because to me it is as though there's no consistent theme throughout the run or really at any point in the run. It's just a story, which is truly tragic. Spider-Man stories used to inspire people to be the best version of themselves. Now, they don't even know what they want to tell you. It's truly tragic what has happened to the greatest hero in all comic book history. That's everything wrong with this run. All of it. I thought about doing a tier list ranking of every single issue in the run, none of which would probably be even above a 7 out of 10. But if that's something you want to see, comment down below and let me know so I know it's something people want to see. If you made it to this part of the video, I really love you. I'm forever grateful that you'll listen to me talk about Spider-Man this much. You rock. I've been working really hard on this video, people, so please support if you can. Check out the Patreon and subscribe. You can request videos on the Patreon, so why not subscribe and request something you want to see? It's the new hotness, people. I think that's going to be it for me, though. I'm going to reread Ultimate Spider-Man and cleanse my palate. Dunk out. Peace.